Hello and good afternoon. You're very welcome to this monthly webinar with Enterpryze. It's just going on 3 o'clock now, so we're going to kick off straight away. And I can see there's plenty of people joining us. So you're very welcome on this Tuesday afternoon or morning or evening, depending on where you are in the world. And as always with our monthly webinars, we bring you the latest features that have been released into the platform. And you will not even have noticed yesterday morning that we went live with the Endeavour update, which delivered on some great new features, which we hope will give you and bring you certainly more great value within the system. So without further ado, let me share my screen and let's take a look at what has come out in this particular release. So as I said, every month we release an update and there's no downtime or effect on your system. You log on the Monday morning and the updates are already there and ready to go. And obviously you're getting used to now the little pop-ups that we have to notify you when the release has actually gone live, with a link of course as always to attend this webinar and as always to watch the storylines on the Help Centre. This of course will be recorded and will be made available on our YouTube channel, and we will send you out a link to that if you are going to miss that in due course. So let me just start off by sharing my screen, and let's just remind you of exactly what's been delivered this month in the Endeavour release. And if you've been following our roadmap as well, which is on our website, enterpryze.com, and if you click on the resources tab and then click on roadmap, you will get a list of all of the features that we bring you each month, and of course as the roadmap is developed for the month to come. So we will of course be posting very soon the expected features that will come into place within September. So let's just remind you about where we are this month with Endeavour for August. So we saw in the July release, which was the Yangtze Kiang release, where we brought the all-new production module to you, which is phase 1 of production. And that's where we introduced the ability to add production orders and obviously to monitor, track and review your bill of materials for the purpose and the basis of the production cycle. So now what we've done here with phase 2, we've extended that offering to include, of course, the resource planning, an important part of any production facility or any production that you have potentially in a warehouse or on the work floor, for example, where items need to be made and obviously raw materials need to be counted and consumed on the basis of the production that's in place. So with the resource planning, you'll be able to allocate the work to the work floor, or perhaps that's to a machine, or perhaps that's to a specific user that needs to carry out that job. We also now have the MRP. So this is the offering where you can now replenish stock that's needed for production. But you can also do this for all of your stock items. So whether that's just general stock items outside of production or those that are involved within the production process, you can look and review the demand that you need in order to complete any of your outstanding production orders, for example. What we've done there is we've introduced lots of new stock levels that you can track and trace. So for example, items that are perhaps committed to your sales orders, those that will be committed or an order from your suppliers, and of course raw materials that are already on production or within a production order, and of course the production item themselves, which is the bill of material items. We've also brought in lots of new Wyze panels, and if you're familiar with all the Wyze panels that we've brought you to date, what we're doing at every step of the way is to bring you information faster and quicker directly through the grids, but also through the screens that you're using on a day-to-day. So in relation to production, you will have quick access to your production costs, the resource planner, and the components. So that's the raw materials that you already have placed within your production order. You'll be able to click in and view that information very quickly directly through the production order grid. You will also now have the ability to assign production orders for picking within the warehouse. So this will obviously come into play later on down the road, for example, where we have this tied in directly to our WMS, which is our mobile handheld for using within the warehouse. So for example, where those items have already been made and you need to pick those then to get them ready for delivery or potentially for quality control or for further other analysis before they get delivered out to your customers. So you'll be able to assign production orders for picking as well through the production menu. And there's lots of other additions. As I've said, there's lots of things that you can already utilise directly within the production orders grid itself, with added columns, so the column chooser, which comes into play throughout all of our grids on the full platform. But I'll certainly, through a live demonstration, show you where all of that, of course, is housed. So with production planning, what does that mean? So production planning, we already have resource planning within the system. You'll see that currently housed within your sales menu and within your services menu. And that's where you can currently plan your sales orders, your deliveries, service calls, activities. And now the additional option that we have is that you can now plan production orders. So this means that whether you choose to allocate that to a specific user or again a machine or a work floor, that you'll be able to plan the production in and again to determine the timelines that you require for the production itself, and if there's any other elements you need to schedule against that production. Perhaps you have a service call that's relevant to quality and assurance against a particular item once it has been produced, and you want to make sure that that's also followed up on the same day within the diary for the relevant user, or again for the specific machine or route user, or again for the work floor. So wherever that needs to be allocated to in terms of resources, that you can manage all of that directly from the resource planning. And of course, the resource planning itself as well is customizable. We've got some great options there where you can customize, for example, the colors, what you would notice as being a sales order or a delivery or a service, or in this case, a production order. We've got set colors for when you open and close a production, which is green for open and red for closed, and that would apply to any of your scheduled transactions within the resource planner. So lots of different things that you can do, and again I'll show you that during the live demonstration. So this is where it currently resides on your production menu. So you can see there, this is the revised production menu now, where we have production orders, bill of materials, items, we've got MRP, we've got the resource planning, and we've got picking. So whether you access resource planning directly from the production menu or from sales or from services, you'll get access to the same options. So let's take a look at what we can do, of course, then within the MRP itself. So what we've done here with MRP, and again, if you're familiar with using the items menu as it currently stands, you've got an item reordering option that you have currently sitting in procurement. So what we've done here with the MRP, we've extended it further. And what we want to make sure is that you can meet demand that's required within your production process. So what does that mean? Well, what it means is that we want you to be able to replenish the stock that you need for production. So any outages on raw materials, for example, that you can generate the required purchase orders for those, order them from your supplier, and of course then take delivery and bring those in to complete the production cycle. So what that involves, of course, is being able to apply different stock levels. So we have certain filters that you can apply, and they've been extended to include, for example, raw materials that you've already committed to production, so that you can see, well, are they committed already elsewhere within production, other production orders that perhaps need and meet that demand as well. You might also want to look at stock on production orders. Now that will apply, of course, to the final product or your bill of material item. There are other stock levels, of course, as well, where you're either at minimum stock level, below minimum stock level. You might also want to include committed stock on sales orders or committed stock on purchase orders. Have I already ordered that from my supplier before I go and create a bunch of purchase orders for my supplier? Can I meet demand by what I'm waiting on delivery for already within the system? So a picture paints 1,000 words, so that when you get into running the MRP, you'll be able to look at the screen and identify clearly where you need to meet demand for production based on the different filters that you have available. On some of those filters as well, when those fields are displayed on the grid itself, you will see again quick access Wyze panels. So wherever you have the purple clickable, you'll be able to click on that to see the exact detail of that particular for example, the committed stock on sales orders, there'll be a list of all the sales orders, or where you've committed on order from your suppliers, you'll be able to see exactly what those purchase orders are and of course identify the relevant suppliers for those. You can of course identify where items are batch and serial number as well. So for example, if you're dealing with raw materials that are perishable and you want to make sure that you've got sufficient stock, but also that they're within the required expiry dates, that you can drill in to see that information directly from the MRP screen itself. So lots of great value coming within the MRP this month for production. So let me just push on here with the Wyze panels to see where that information then will come into play on the production grid itself. So what we've brought in here with the production costs, when you currently look at a production order that we added last month for Enterprise, you will see that there are a certain amount of costs that you can apply to that production order. And of course, you can add to that as often as you wish. So the whole idea here is that when you've added your production order, I'm looking at the production grid and I just want to get an overall idea of where I stand in relation to a particular production order. What I can do is again, through the column chooser, I can identify those particular columns. So in this case, it would be the cost lines. I can show that on my grid. And when I click on the purple button, again, because it's a purple Wyze tag, I will get to see a list of all of the costs that I've identified. These are all the manual or additional costs that you've identified against your production order. In addition to that, I can also bring the component lines onto my grid. And by clicking into the component lines, I get to see exactly what raw materials I have applied to my production order. The nice thing about our production orders is that even though you've got a bill of materials, and for example, it might have a certain amount of components or raw materials assigned to it from the very outset as an item, you can in fact add to that on a production. So for example, if for some reason, let's say, for example, we're making a bike and we want to add a basket to that, but that's not normally available under standard. So of course, it's an additional cost on the bike itself. We can add that to the production run and add that into the production order as well. So that can all be updated and changed as and when you need it. In addition to that, again, I'll show you this actually on the resource planner when we do the live demonstration. You also have a Wyze panel for the resource planner. So as you can see here on the grid, there is a field that will identify the planned start date and the planned end date. And this is where you've gone to the resource planner and you've taken your production order and you've planned it in for production, for example, for this afternoon or tomorrow morning. And what this is going to show you are the start and end dates and times that you've specified as a result of that on the resource planner. If for any reason you want to update that, very simply, that can all be done directly from the grid itself. All you do is simply click on the planned start date and you can simply update the date, the time, whatever it is that you need to do to move it along the resource planner. Perhaps for whatever reason, that particular machinist or that user is actually not going to be in tomorrow, so you need to move that on by another 24 hours. That can very simply be done directly here from the grid itself. And you can see there, for example, where we have potentially a list of production orders where we haven't planned them at all, and you've got the NA. You can simply click on the NA and you can actually allocate them to the resource planner directly from the Wyze panel as well. So just great quick access, key features that we can bring you directly from the grid, just making it easier for you to navigate around the system without always having to be in the end screen itself, but just bringing that information to you quicker and faster. Next up, in terms of what we've rolled out this month with Endeavour, is just some UI that we've done, and this is around the item master. So this is where you've gone into items and then you've drilled into an actual item. So at the top of that screen, what we've done is we've just reorganized the UI just to make it clearer to read and understand. So starting from the top down there, you can see we have the name of the item code, the description of the item. We've got a line beneath that that clearly defines how many items are in stock. We've got, for example, this one here, we've got 89 committed to customers with 12 available to sell, and there's 1 on order with suppliers. If you've noticed there as well, we've also got the purple highlight on some of those key numbers. So what that means is the 89 committed, for example, I'll be able to click on that 89 and again, it'll pop open my Wyze panel to show me the committed sales orders. Or of course, if you've any sales reserve invoices, because they also commit stock as well for order purposes. And then again, if I clicked on the one on order with suppliers, that would activate my on order, my purchase orders to see all my purchase orders for all of my suppliers up to date. Other than that, we've just reorganized the columns. You can see here, you've got your item group, description, sales tax, purchase tax, item barcode, just making information look better on screen. And then on the other side in the middle there, we have the item type. And of course, then you can see the image of the item as well. In addition to that, so for example, where you might have a dimensional item, we've also brought the dimensional information to the right hand side or the middle of the screen there. You can see it there beneath where we have item type. We've got the dimensions, it's box square units. We can see the pieces per box and of course the square units per box as well. And the other side of this is if this was a non-stack item. So for example, where you're managing a non-stack item for projects, we would also see if it had been flagged for a service call as part of your project tracking as well. So just some great new UI and certainly plenty more to come. And just in terms of your stock information, you will see that that bar which is below this is still in place to say your stock on hand, stock on order, stock committed, and your free stock is still there as well on the main screen. In addition, we've brought in some further item UIs, and this is all around the gross profit. So this is to do with your settings option. When you go into settings and go into module settings and look at the sales settings window. So you know you've always had the ability there to enable gross profit calculation. And you can see there at the cost for gross profit calculation, there was always the options for actual as purchase price, you've got base or you've got moving average. So if it tracks it by the moving average cost price. Now we've introduced another setting, and really what this setting does is this will dictate how it is displayed then on your sales transactions. So we've got two options here. We've got profit divided by purchase price or profit divided by sales price. So this all depends on exactly what you would like to see. And I'm just going to show you a very quick example here. So for example, we have a total sales price on a document of 100. The total purchase price is by actual and it's 75, but the gross profit is 25. So that's simply just the difference between the two. We all know that. So how is the gross profit percentage then being calculated? So very simply, it's the 25 divided by, in this case, the purchase price, which would be 75, gives us 33.33%. If this was the 25 divided by 100, i.e. our sales price, it would be 25%. So it just depends on how you want to see that on the sales documents. And where you see that on your sales documents is the total. It's the total at the bottom of your sales document, where you can click in again to the purple Wyze tag to see the gross profit calculations. It's that simple. Moving on then to the stock posting report. So just something that we've brought in to make it easier again to see the information by company. So for example, if you want to see exactly all the postings for a specific customer or a specific supplier, we've simply just brought in a filter to run the report for you by that. So you simply just select your customer or supplier, run the report, and you can see here on the results of the report, it will show you the code and the description for that particular customer or supplier. And that's just to save you having to filter again within the grid itself. So it's just an extra option to filter further within the report itself. So nice and simple. And of course, there's always more. So we've brought some cool, great settings in as well in relation to starting with the hide customer account balances at user level. So you can actually, this is actually switched off by default. So just to make you fully aware of that. So that's switched off by default. And if you want that enabled, you have to go into, again, settings, into user settings, and then to enable that against each of your users. And then there's several screens throughout the system where that will apply. We've got a new setting for mandatory reference number on sales transactions. So that's a setting you can switch on and off. Again, that's in your settings, module settings against sales. So do you want to make sure that no matter where the reference is in relation to all your sales transactions, do you want to ensure that your users populate that field and that it follows through for every transaction? So you get to decide whether to switch that on or off. And then simply after that, then we have the column chooser. So this is just bringing another column of information to all your purchasing documents, and that's to now include the comments field. It's just something that wasn't there till now. We had the comments field throughout our sales transactions, and now we'll have it throughout all our purchase transactions. And of course, there's always much more, just a very quick change here that we did in relation to the accounting. The company reconciliation has been moved to the accounting module, as you know. And what we've done here is, again, we've just tidied up the UI. We've just made the grid and the new company reconciliation screen usable and readable for everybody. Again, you can see here on the grid itself, you've got the purple Wyze tags. Number one, the first one there takes you into any existing reconciliation. And of course, you've got a Wyze tag there for your company name. So if you needed to see the company details before you go into the company reconciliation, that you can see those beforehand. And of course, for anybody out there that's not familiar with the company reconciliation, simply where you are tidying up your customer or supplier account to clear down outstanding balances, for example, where you might have had multiple payments, for example, against one particular invoice, and now you're coming in to reconcile all of those open payments against that open invoice to clear them down and clear them out of the system, or of course, credit notes as well on both sides. So again, when we go into the new company reconciliation screen, you can see there just a change in the UI, the defined title bar, which you're starting to get familiar with throughout all of the transaction screens. So we're just bringing this in line with what we've already done throughout the other transaction screens within the system. And of course, just to remind you, and I've just brought this in because I know Morgan discussed this on the roadmap as well during the last webinar in July, and this is just a reminder of what's coming. Plenty of more features to come, particularly around production and around the WMS with the advanced bins, which is basically tracking your stock within the warehouse. Currently, we have the single bin scenario for tracking stock on the WMS system, but with the advanced bins, you'll be able to track quantities in individual bins. You'll know exactly where the item is and the exact quantity in that exact bin. Lots more functionality around that, and of course that will also bring another element where you'll be able to pick production orders ready for delivery then to your customers as well from the WMS. So just a reminder of what's still to come on the system. Well, let's dive straight in and go over to the live system, and let me share my screen, and let me just remind you on the production side of things all the changes that we've brought to you this month. So let me just share this with you now. Okay, so starting off here in the all new production menu, and if this is something that's going to be, you're going to be using going forward, don't forget to join me tomorrow. I've got the expert session in the morning, which is the Enterprise University, which will take you through step by step of exactly how to utilize all of the features and functions within production, how to switch it on, all the permissions that are required. So follow me then tomorrow morning. It's at 9:30. And you can get registration directly on our website. So here in production, let me just remind you, I've got a production order here. In fact, just want to show you this. So before we even go near the MRP or resource planning, here's one that I've added earlier. So let me just pop into this for you here. So very simply, I want to make a bike, want to put a bike into production. I've planned for a quantity of 3, but already looking at the top of the production order, I can see here it tells me if there's obviously stock available for this particular bill of material item, what's committed to customers, what's available to sell. But I can see here on the right hand side, you can produce 0 based on raw materials. So I know at some point I'm going to run out of raw materials when it comes to making this particular item. So I can see that here, there's my raw materials, which is the planned bill of materials. And as I mentioned, we can increase that or change that as we need. So now let's go over to the MRP. And let's see what it's going to suggest to us that we should reorder for those particular items. So we're going to start off here in MRP. And as I mentioned, the MRP, you can run it by all stock items. So that's all of your different stock items, or you can run it by bill of materials. Running it by stock items, as you can see here on the right-hand side, will create purchase orders. running it by bill of materials, you're going to be creating production orders in bulk for those items. So let's just go back to the stock items, and I'm just going to reduce the filter down. I'm going to start here on the filter section. I'm just going to look at the bite parts because I know that's what I have in relation to the items on that particular production run. I'm just going to apply the filters. I'm just going to start by finding those particular items. And as you can see there, it's got 4 items listed. Now, the reason it has 4, because I've asked it here in the stock level, as you can see here, let's move over here. It's showing items that are below or at minimum stock level. If I was to say all, and if we were to apply filters, I would see all items within that particular box. This is just all my raw materials that are part of this particular product group that I want to run demand on. I can, of course, filter and specify destination warehouse. I can reorder to my maximum stock levels or by reorder quantity. I can specify a default supplier. So perhaps I don't want to do a run for a particular supplier. And as I've mentioned there on the stock levels, I can start here by looking at all stock items, or I can just look at items that are below or at minimum stock level. So let me just apply that first and foremost. So I'm looking at those 4 items. And even without selecting any further filters in relation to demand, I can see just by looking at those items, I can see that there's 1 on hand, the free stock is 1, minimum stock is 2, so it's well below. I can see that the maximum stock is 30, and already it's telling me a suggested reorder quantity of 29 to bring it up to the maximum. The maximum is what I've chosen here, but of course I can do it by reorder quantity as well. So let's bring another level of filtering into this. So for example, I want to see, for example, what's on order for my suppliers. Have I got anything on order for my suppliers? So once I click this particular column on, you can see there that it now displays the on purchase order. But straight away I can see those values are all 0. If I click in, my on purchase order list is actually 0. So I've nothing on order. So I'm seriously going to run out of stock soon. Again, in addition to that, I can also include where I know those items are also currently committed to production. So it's telling me that in fact, in relation to each of those items, there's a quantity of 3 for the first one, second, third, and in fact, a quantity of 6 committed to production already. So I can see already demand is required for these particular items. I need to generate purchase orders and get delivery from my suppliers so that I can meet the demand and that I can follow through with production on these particular items. So what can I do next? Well, I can very simply either manually populate my reorder quantity. I can add the suggested reorder quantity to that either. Perhaps I've had a conversation with my supplier and he's saying, look, in all honesty, I can only deliver, I've only got 20 of those in stock. I've had a conversation with them and he's told me, no, you can't have the max. So we're only actually able to order 20 and maybe 15 of this one. So let's just populate that here, and the same here, for example, with this one. So I can populate those manually, or I can add the suggested reorder quantity automatically to that column. In addition to that, then of course you can see there I've got my preferred supplier because this is where the purchase orders are going to be created. So what I can do there is I can select those 4 items, and I'm happy now because they're going to meet demand. I need to get that stock in order to finish off current production. I want to get those raw materials or else I'm not going to be able to produce that item for the customer this week. So let's just create the purchase order. Okay, and let that just create it. And what we should get, you can see there the total quantity, it's going to tell you the units that are required once it comes in. And then we should get a link then to our purchase order once it is processed. Okay, so we'll let that just continue processing there. And the same, of course, will apply if we were to switch to running a bill of materials, where, for example, we wanted to create production orders on demand. So let me just take off that particular product group filter. And of course, we can look at all bill of material items, or we can certainly bring that down and just view the item in question, for example. And again, if we look at all stock levels, because this particular item I know is actually not below stock levels at the moment. And again, if I look at the line for the production order or for the bill of material item, I can see, for example, anything in relation to costs. So this is from the last purchase price. Currently on hand. So for example, if I drill into that, I can see all the previous stock movements for that particular item. I can see what the free stock is, the minimum stock, maximum stock, reorder quantity. And of course, again, I can run our stock levels here. So for example, if I wanted to see, was this on order, or in fact more so, has it been committed to sales orders? So for example, I can see their committed stock. So if I click on that at the moment, there is an open sales order for that particular bill of material item. And I can run this column here to see where if it's already included on production orders for stock levels. So yes, it's included on one production order. So it's already been included there for stock levels. So again, I can make more informed decisions around the demand needed for those items. So that's our MRP. In relation then to our resource planning. So if we start off here at resource planning, as you can see here, we've got a couple of things that we can do. We've got the date, so we can look at whether we want to look at today's date or a range of dates. We can plan orders, deliveries, services, activities, but of course, ultimately, we want to look at planning production orders. Before we do that, we want to select the user or the machine or the route or the work floor, whatever it is that you want to schedule against. And of course, you can select multiple people here while you're doing your scheduling. So I'll just select this one user for now. In addition to that, we can also look at the calendar view. So in the calendar view, this is where you can decide. So based on your business process and needs, you can decide the calendar view that best suits you. So for example, I'm looking here at the timeline day. You can put in your start and end times for your day-to-day processing. You can put in your sales duration. So if you can see here, this is at 1 hour. I can increase that to 2 hourly or half hourly, whatever is required. And of course, I can increase the row height. And this is just what you're going to see here, particularly where you might have multiple appointments or multiple resources scheduled against one particular user. Perhaps there's a production order, and as mentioned before, maybe an activity to carry out quality and assurance, or something around the services, and you want to make sure that that's all allocated on the resources for that particular user. So let's just apply that here. In addition to that, you can customize the resource planner. So these are all potentially the colors that you can allocate. And of course, you can pick up the RGB codes here to allocate against the different transaction types. You can see there for open and closed. So open transactions are always green, closed are red, but you can decide what they are. Make them work for you. And that's the whole idea around this. Make it work for you. In addition to that, of course, I can select or apply a specific filter on a specific customer or project code or activity or problem type if I'm dealing with services. So let me just apply that there. And of course, when it comes to, in addition to that, when it comes to the calendar view as well itself, let's go to plan production orders. I also have an additional filter here against the production orders itself. If I want to make sure I'm only looking at a specific route or user or machine, again, I can make sure that that's all I'm seeing here in relation to picking that up from the production orders. So what I see here, of course, are all the production orders that I have ready to be scheduled. So for example, if I want to put this into the diary, for example, this evening, I've got a late production run. I want to start that off into this evening. I could populate that and move it into the forward clock zone. So as you can see there, it automatically populates it here. And very simply, if I want that to take, for example, that's going to be till we close this evening and let that user work on, or I can click into the details and extend the scheduled end date as well for that particular resource. And as you can see here, there is the color green at the start of the scheduled production order. So this is what happens when you schedule something into the system. It will stay green once it's been scheduled. And of course, it'll turn to red once it has been completed within the system. In addition to this, let me just go back one step, because now that we've scheduled it, when we look at the orders grid itself, there's lots of other columns that will give you this information as well without having to look at the resource planning itself. So starting off here with the 3 dots, which is your elliptical menu, I can click here, I can simply go to column chooser, and I can look at the planned start date. I can look at the planned end date. So I can see exactly what they've been planned in for. I mentioned about your component lines. Let me just bring those up for you as well. I also mentioned about your cost lines. Let me bring those up for you as well. In addition to that, I'm actually going to bring up the pick status, and I'm also going to bring in the picker for you as well, because we can do all of this as well from the grid. So because we've allocated this particular production order to resources, what I can do now is I can click on the planned start date, and I can see here, well, it's starting today at 4 p.m. and I can see there it's planned for this particular user. Perhaps I want to change it. I can actually just do it all directly here from the Wyze panel. I can come in here, change the date and time, or change the root user, and then it's swapped around on the resource planner. It really is that easy to do it, all from the grid. And this is where, of course, I can now drill in to see my component lines. So you know we had the 6 lines when I showed you the original production order. So I can actually see what they are. I can see those 6 items and what the production items are. I can see any additional costs that I might have allocated as well to the production order itself. I've added labour on here, so I'll see that as well, all directly from, again, from the grid. So that brings us to the picking. Now we can see here on the grid itself, again, just going from the orders grid itself, I can see that the production order is not assigned to a picker to be picked. So this would be where, for example, if when we have this pending, and if for any reason we bring this then to complete, we can then come in here and assign it then to be picked when the final item has been produced. So I can do this all directly from the grid itself. Alternatively, I can come in here to the picking panel. So from the picking panel, you can also pick up your production orders. And you can see here, for example, I can select a production order. I can come up here then to the picking list. I can specify the picker and I can assign it. So you can see there that automatically updates, but it also updates directly back to the production order grid. So that was number 22. So if you look here at number 22, I'll just highlight the line for you. You can see there that the picker has been allocated to myself. And very simply what I can do is I can also click on the title for the picker. And if for any reason I need to update that, so perhaps I want to change the picker to somebody else, or the pick status, I want to move that on. So at the moment that's just enabled directly on the web. It doesn't go through to WMS just yet, but that's where it'll be key for you. And of course, from the picking grid itself, you'll be able to create filtered reports, export to Excel. And of course, if you need to run picking lists then for any production orders, that you can do that also from here. So lots and lots of great functionality that we've brought to you just in one update, and that's only within, as I said, since the last update, which was delivered at the end of July, and here we are at the end of August with another great update that's been added to production. So I look forward to seeing you on the next webinar, and of course that is for those of you that are going to be joining me for the Enterprise University on production. That's going to be tomorrow morning, and I look forward to seeing if you have any questions around production. We'll be able to take those on board during tomorrow's session. So thank you so much, and just to mention, of course, if you need to find out any more information, always check out help.enterprise.com. I post up, for anybody that's not familiar, all the latest updates just to show you this here, always as a reminder of where to find, how do I find out what all these wonderful features are and how they work. When you come in here to news and updates, as you can see there, the latest update is always at the top of the list. So there is Endeavour for August, and if you click into that, I also have a demo. So if you click on the demo, that will activate a nice little walkthrough demonstration of how to use the feature within the system. So take a look at all of those if you're not yet familiar with the Help Centre and all the articles that we have currently available. And of course, keep an eye out as always on our website and on the roadmap, which will be coming updated to you soon. So under here, under resources And if we go into roadmap, this is where we keep you up to date at all times on all the great new features coming every single month. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I wish you a great rest of day or morning or evening, and look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you and take care.